Howdy folks, and welcome back to World of Warships with Rear Admiral Jingles. And for today's viewing pleasure we have Rexadactyl in the Tier 7 British destroyer HMS Jervis. In fact, he's in a triple Jervis division. That's right, 3 players sign up in a triple destroyer division, and the matchmaker says, I like what you're doing there, and throws another destroyer in on each team. 4 destroyers on each team. Although there is a carrier in play, which may go some way towards keeping the destroyer rampage in check. But just exactly how confident do you think the battleship players are feeling on both teams? Because the carrier's bad news for them as well. They're going to be spotted from miles away. And there are 4 destroyers sloping around in wolf packs, and that's pretty much exactly what these guys are doing. I would like to offer one word of caution here, however. If you're considering divisioning up in a triple destroyer division and jumping into random battles, be aggressive. If you're going to do what these guys are doing and stick together, a triple destroyer division can be deadly if they play aggressively. If they don't, it can be one of the worst things that could ever happen to your team. Because if all, or in this case almost all, 75% of your team's destroyers aren't getting stuck in, your team is probably going to lose. And with 3 destroyers in a division sticking together, you can rotate your smoke screens, you can constantly keep those torpedo barrages up, and of course these are British destroyers, so they've also got that defensive hydroacoustic search. So if you are going to do that triple destroyer division thing, as these guys are doing here, you need to work that shit. Slowing down here to let the Monty past. Managed to dodge the torpedoes from the enemy carrier that's coming in from the other side. I think he's going to get them away. Yep, he is. Oh, that's not so good. That is not so good. He's dodged one. Oh, and it very, very nearly clipped. Rexadactyl here. He reacted just in time. Of course, the biggest danger that the carrier poses in the destroyer is the spotting. But if you're in a triple destroyer division, you've got 3 smoke screens. Now, British smoke screens, short duration, but you've got 3 of them. So if you're going to do this, for God's sake, please, for the sake of your team, play aggressively. Right then, let's see how they handle this. So the enemy Z-39 has been spotted up ahead with the Omaha and the Miyoko. So this is a Tier 7 battle, in case it wasn't obvious. And there are some Tier 5s. And Tier 5 is a rough tier because it's the first time you play without protected matchmaking. It's the first time you see ships that are 2 tiers higher than you. I don't think that Omaha up ahead realises just exactly how fragile he is yet, but he's about to find out. He's managed to avoid the opening salvo there from the Monty's semi-armour piercing, but now he's about to discover the hard way just how effective British destroyer high explosive shells are. They hit pretty hard, and they hit pretty fast too. Then again, if the Omaha's going to give you broadside like that at this kind of range, British destroyer armour piercing is pretty effective, particularly against terribly armoured targets like that Tier 5 American cruiser as he turns to avoid the torpedoes and eats a faceful of armour piercing right in his citadel. So there's the first blood award. 1 enemy Tier 5 1 enemy Tier 5 cruiser down. Z-39's torpedoes there, and it looks like the Omaha possibly managed to get some torpedoes away as well. Often catches people by surprise. They don't expect American cruisers to have torpedoes, but of course the Omaha and its predecessor at Tier 4, the Phoenix, do have fairly hard-hitting but slow and very short-range torpedoes. There's the Z-39. He is definitely our next customer. He's already lost more than half of his health. Come on guys, focus the Z-39. They are. Okay, good. The Z-39's in a fairly tough spot here because there are torpedo bombers overhead that are keeping him spotted. So, right now he's thinking, well, I'm spotted from the air anyway, so I may as well shoot back at the people shooting at me. However, it's possible that he could have survived this if he'd stopped shooting, because right now the torpedo bombers are gone. So if he hadn't been shooting, he would have immediately gone undetected. Having said that though, the shots that killed him were pretty much already in the air, and probably would have killed him anyway, detected or not. So under the circumstances, and it was a tough spot for him to be in, but he probably did the right thing. Meanwhile, the team have suffered their first loss of their own, HMS Hawkins, who was all the way over on the eastern end of the map with the friendly Minakaze, the other destroyer, that you can see on the map there, assuming you're not watching this on a mobile device in 480p. And an enemy destroyer has managed to sneak past them somehow. One of those Swedish things was spotted slipping through. He's gone undetected again, but he was last seen making a beeline for the friendly carrier, and he was only about 10 kilometres away from it. Under the circumstances, you'd think the friendly carrier might be concerned about that, but he doesn't really appear to be. There's a friendly Omaha heading south, trying to cut off that enemy destroyer. The Minakaze's busy chasing after him as well. And the friendly carrier is moving away from the direction where that Swedish destroyer was spotted, but he's not actually doing anything to help spot him again. He's still sending his aircraft up here. When there's an enemy destroyer that doesn't have a smoke screen, right? Remember, Swedish destroyer closing in from here. I mean, the carrier clearly knows that he's under threat of destroyer attack because he's sailing west. Although, I don't know, maybe I'm giving him too much credit. Perhaps he's sailing west in order to be able to cycle his aircraft attacks faster by getting closer to the action. But if he wants to get closer to the action, all he has to do is stay where he is, because the action is coming to him. And like I said, there's an Omaha coming to his defence, but the lack of aerial spotting on that enemy destroyer could get that Omaha killed. Oh well, we'll pay attention to that and see what happens. Meanwhile, Rexodactyl, those do look like very, very good torpedoes. Unfortunately, Rexodactyl was the one doing the spotting, so we're just going to have to count the torpedoes and see how many of them hit. Ooh, one of his... Oh, there's 2. There's 4, there's 5. I mean, 5 hits was good, we're not complaining. 6 would have killed him, though. And he has definitely used his damage control on a single flood, because the damage counter wasn't ticking up. So this is absolutely justified in giving your position away in order to try to get there's a fire. Unfortunately, the Fuso is now also using his damage repair. So it'd be real nice if T-Rexodactyl wasn't the only person shooting at this guy. I mean, a double fire would definitely make sure of it, because they do need to sink this Fuso. They need to sink this Fuso, and then the team need to get their asses in gear and start sweeping to the east and fighting the rest of the enemy team. How long does a fire last on a battleship? It's 40 seconds, isn't it? He's going to get... Yeah, he's got him. Okay, good. Meanwhile, the team have lost another cruiser. Can you guess which one it was? Yes, it was the Omaha who came down to defend the carrier from the threat posed by that Swedish destroyer. And of course, without the benefit of any air spotting from the carrier, he got killed by the destroyer. At this point, I'm sure that that carrier knows there's a destroyer chasing after him. He'd have to be completely oblivious to not understand that. He's running away still. And now there's a Koenig. For those of you who possibly don't play World of Warships, a Koenig is a German Tier 5 battleship who is heading south with his spotter plane up, trying to find that destroyer. And again, without the benefit of any air spotting from the carrier who's under threat from the destroyer in the first place. Seriously, with teammates like this. Television? Who needs it? Drama, comedy, romance, intrigue. It's all there in a random battle in World of Warships. Anyway, what T-Rexodactyl is trying to do here is get his torpedoes away undetected. And the Jervis can do it, it's just not easy. Its torpedoes have a 7-kilometre range, and as you can see from the minimap circles, he has a 6.3 kilometre surface detection range. So he's got a 700 metre window of opportunity to get those torpedoes away without being spotted. And that is not easy. Also, because you're basically launching those torpedoes from the maximum possible range, and they're not the fastest torpedoes in the world either, any minor course changes or speed changes that the opponent makes, most of those, if not all of those torpedoes are going to miss. The alternative is getting spotted in order to get the torpedoes away from closer to give the enemy less time to react, and hope that they're not paying attention to what's going on, because as soon as you've been spotted, you're basically saying, there are torpedoes coming from this direction. Luckily, the enemy Koenig isn't moving much because he's managed to ground himself. T-Rexodactyl slows, pops his smoke, and starts shooting. So he's trying to force a damage control here, trying to set him on fire before the torpedoes arrive, and there it is. But the Koenig isn't falling for that old trick. He's either not dumb enough to use the damage control on the single fire, or he sees the smoke screen. He knows that there are probably torpedoes coming, but the torpedoes are coming in from a different angle to where T-Rexodactyl is now. 3 hits, no floods. There are more torpedoes coming though, because of course T-Rexodactyl isn't alone up here. He's in a triple destroyer division. Popping out of the smoke to give visibility for his teammate. He's managed to get himself spotted again. But again, this is worth the risk. Or is it? Yeah, minor damage. Totally worth it. And there's another fire. That is, however, not necessarily a dead Koenig. His damage control has been used, so that's going to be a full duration 40-second fire. But he's out-healing the damage with his damage repair party. So T-Rexodactyl has to keep shooting and exposing himself to return fire. And the enemy Ryujo is sending attack aircraft in. And again, oh no, somebody else is actually noticing that there's an extremely low health German battleship here that needs to be finished off. Come on. Although it looks like T-Rexodactyl is the only one actually hitting him. Oh no, there we go. Finally, they found the range. Looks like his heal has expired. Yeah, he's done. Couple more hits. Come on. There, got him. Kill number 3. So that's good. And the enemy Miyoko isn't interested. He's running away as fast as he can. Firing back, of course, while T-Rexodactyl is still spotted. However, while the team are in a pretty good place as far as points are concerned, because they have 2 of the caps, they did have 3, but the central cap at Bravo is being flipped by an enemy Acasta. And that Acasta also torpedoed and sank the friendly New York. Yes, the New York was contesting a cap circle against an enemy destroyer, and the reason for that is because all of the cruisers have headed south, which is still not being air spotted by the friendly carrier. Except there's a bit of a plot twist here, because it's not just one of them. Both of the little buggers are down there, which is extremely bad news for this Koenig, because he's about to get torpedoed and sunk as well. That will teach him not to go back and try to defend your carrier. Meanwhile, up here at this end of the map, the friendly Minakaze has managed to flush out the enemy carrier, the Ryujo, and that is extremely good news for T-Rexodactyl. Not such good news for the Minakaze, because unlike our team's carrier, that carrier is not only running away from the destroyer threat, he's also focusing all of his aircraft on it and keeping it spotted. So, bad news for the Minakaze, great news for T-Rexodactyl, because the carrier just, it doesn't matter which way he goes, he's running into a destroyer. And he can only attack one of them at a time. He's managed to set a fire, which is of course a complete waste of time because aircraft carriers in World of Warships are basically immune to being set on fire, which is totally historically accurate of course. No aircraft carrier ever got sunk as a result of being set on fire, did it? Well, if the fires don't get him, and they won't, the torpedoes will, because he can't hide from the Minakaze and T-Rexodactyl. Do you know why fires only last 5 seconds on an aircraft carrier in this game? It's because Wargaming think that aircraft carrier players are too stupid to be able to control their own consumables and their aircraft's consumables at the same time. Although, you know, in the case of the carrier player on T-Rexodactyl's team, Wargaming might actually have a point here. Because since that guy started running away from the enemy destroyers pursuing him, they have managed to sink all 3 of the friendly ships that made the mistake of going back to try to save the carrier. The carrier didn't need saving, he's running away. And all 3, we're talking a Monty, a Koenig and an Omaha, have been sunk by those destroyers. Destroyers, which I must remind you, have no smokescreen because they're Swedish, and wouldn't be able to do a thing about being spotted from the air. In fact, you know what, I think it's high time we actually concentrated on the minimap, because there's going to be a minute or so at least before T-Rexodactyl gets in the position to shoot at or torpedo anything. Take a look here. The carrier is running north, and just a couple of kilometres behind them there's a cap circle being flipped. So he knows there's a destroyer right behind him, although there's been at least one destroyer right behind him for at least the last 10 minutes, and he's never done anything about it until now, because he no longer has any teammates throwing themselves between him and the destroyer threat. So he, of course, launches, not his rocket attack planes, no, his torpedo bombers, the worst possible choice of aircraft with which to attack an enemy destroyer. The reason he didn't send his rocket attack planes, which would have been the best choice, was because that squadron got mauled attacking the enemy battleships further over to the east. Yes, he's attacking battleships with his rocket attack planes, and he's attacking destroyers with his torpedo bombers. For those of you who don't actually play World of Warships, that's really dumb. Okay. Well, he did manage to spot the destroyer in the cap circle, and it's the Acasta. So that guy's been busy. He, of course, failed to torpedo the Acasta, so he's recalled that squadron, and now he's sending the replenished rocket attack plane squadron out. So this is good, right? Yeah, not so much. Watch what happens. There go the rocket attack planes. And just as they're about to actually cross the border of the cap circle, you know, at the exact point when they might actually spot an enemy destroyer, he stops them, recalls them, and sends the torpedo bombers out again. At this point, I'm pretty convinced that that carrier is basically making decisions by just rolling his face over his keyboard, because I have no better explanation for that kind of decision making. Anyway, back to T-Rexadactyl. He's about to have a close encounter with an enemy Murmansk. Now, the Murmansk is basically an American Omaha class light cruiser. In fact, was the USS Milwaukee, which was transferred to the USSR in 1944, so it's almost exactly the same as the American Omaha, except where it's better because it's Russian. That Murmansk, however, has just made a critical error of judgment, and I don't mean sitting broadside on and getting hammered by British destroyer armour piercing, which is kind of silly, although he might win this gunfight. No, the mistake that he's made is stopping and trying to reverse the second he spotted an enemy destroyer, which meant that those torpedoes were never going to miss. And I'm sure T-Rexadactyl is very grateful for the Kraken unleashed. But the Murmansk was trying to get some kind of island between himself and the torpedo threat. So he slowed down and started reversing, which takes a lot longer than just keeping going in the direction that you're going and slipping in the gap between those two islands up ahead, which he could have done in a tenth of the time of the slowing down and reversing manoeuvre, and that's what got him killed. And what gave T-Rexadactyl his Kraken unleashed. And his high caliber. He's on 135,000 damage, which is, you know, chump change. Ooh, hang on a second. Torpedoes? Yeah, 135,000 damage is chump change by tier 10 battle standards, but it's pretty impressive down here at tier 5, 6 and 7. So who did those torpedoes come from? Certainly wasn't the USS Texas. Probably not the... Aha! There we go, it's the Swedish Chef, and this is not a gunfight that you're going to win. Well, he might. And he is doing a lot of damage there, but he could easily die from this. So surviving is more important. Although, well, yes, it is. And I'll explain why. Aside from the obvious reasons, because, you know, you can't sink anything when you're dead. Well, unless you're in a carrier, of course. But more importantly, there's only 2 minutes of this match remaining. They're outnumbered. They only control one of the 3 cap circles. So getting killed now, with this amount of time remaining, would give the enemy team an even bigger points lead precisely when you can least afford for them to have it. So the team need to either flip a cap or sink something, preferably both, and preferably sink more than one thing to give them the points buffer that they're going to need in lieu of the cap advantage. The Miyoko's not looking very healthy. Then again, neither was the Scania, or however you pronounce it, I don't know, Swedish thing. So T-Rexadactyl has to take an awful risk here. Now his smoke is ready to go. It would be real nice if there was some air spotting going on here, wouldn't it? There he is. He's always going to outspot him, but not by much. Slow, smoke, come on. He set a fire. Come on. Oh, shit. Is he going to get away with it? The Swedes use the damage control. He's firing blind into the smoke. There's only 40 seconds of the match remaining. The enemy team was 60 points ahead. Now they're more than 60 points ahead. And he was killed, I hasten to remind you, by an enemy destroyer who should have been dead 15 minutes ago if the team had an aircraft carrier that was capable of thinking and breathing at the same time. What's that carrier doing now? He's still, and has been for the last 5 minutes at least, trying to spot and sink destroyers with his torpedo bombers. Unfortunately, this was just one of those days, and, well, not really one of those teams, but one of those aircraft carriers where Kraken Unleashed, First Blood, High Caliber, Devastating Strike, and Confederate was just never going to be enough. It's amazing the impact, or lack of it, just one player in a team can have. T-Rexadactyl, well played, and my commiserations. Everyone else, I hope you enjoyed it, because that's it for today. And as always, take care, stay safe, and I'll catch you next time.